Welcome to Jane's Place, where dreams learn to fly. Season 2, the Strength Series. If you are new to Jane's Place, welcome. If you joined me last season, thank you for continuing the journey with me. For those of you watching this podcast, you see a picture of me from the summer of 1995. I was just promoted to division president at Frito-Lay, the highest ranking woman at Frito, and the first woman in a president role. At 36, I was at the top of my game, and it's pretty evident from the look on my face, the glass of champagne, and the cigar that I thought I was somebody important. And maybe I was. But within 6 months, there would be a reorganization at Frito, and my position would go away. I would move into a role that was clearly a demotion, and within 2 years, I would leave the company. From hero to zero. From my vantage point today, the story of why I got demoted is not very insightful. What is insightful is that I did not have the tools to deal with this failure. I didn't realize that it was just one of many bumps in the road that I would have in both my professional and personal life in the years that have followed. I didn't realize that this was just part of my journey where failure and success are two sides of the same coin. I didn't realize that I would be a better leader and stronger person on the other side of this. Honestly, it hurt like hell and shook my confidence. So in season 2, I talk about passion again, and I ask most of my guests about resiliency and how they manage during tough times. Because it is not if we will have failure, it is just when. And when the win comes, and it will, do we have the tools to learn and grow from it? Thanks for joining me for the Strength Series. And spoiler alert, 30 years later, failure still sucks. On today's episode, I talked to the president of my alma mater, Andy McGadney. Andy has been at the helm of Knox College, based in Galesburg, Illinois, since the summer of 2021. And in his role as president, he has a front row seat to the next generation of leaders. I had previously met Andy not long after he took the role, but this was my first time to sit down and get to know more about his approach. And I have to say that I have never been more confident about the future of Knox and a liberal arts education. I hope Knox students and alums can listen to Andy and be equally inspired. To learn more about Andy and his favorite comfort food, he's another mac and cheese guy, please go to janesplace.com. All right. Well, Andy, let's get started with our podcast today. And we always like to start Jane's Place with a question about what are you most passionate about? Yeah. And you probably have more than one thing, but what's the first thing that comes to mind?
First thing, you're right. Lots of things come to mind. I'm passionate about family. That's probably let's start there. And then, as you know, I'm passionate about education as a college president and someone who has just witnessed the impact that education can have on a person's life. That's been really important for me to be a part of that process. My mom was a first grade elementary school teacher, and was really the one that was the kind of foundation of why education is so important. You saw it with her. You saw it how both mom and dad kind of supported that interest and that lifelong learning sense, and that started from an early age and has never gone away. So it's been great.
Well, let's start. I want to go a little bit deeper into family first, and then I'm going to come back to education because you really hit a chord with me based on my background. So I want to go a little bit deeper. But let's start with family. So tell me a little bit about spouse, kids, where you grew up, just to get a little bit more about the heart of why family is important to you.
I'll start with my folks. Both my mom and dad are from Mobile, Alabama, a small town called Pritchard, Alabama. But I was born in Connecticut. So they moved from Alabama. Both had gone to historically Black colleges and universities in Alabama, one Alabama State, Alabama A&M, but couldn't find meaningful work during that time in the 50s and 60s. And So moved to Connecticut to find meaningful work. My dad ended up being a long-time state employee, but the Department of Transportation. My mom, as I mentioned earlier, was a school teacher for 30 plus years. Only child.
Oh, gosh.
I know.
Wow.
So that was actually kind of fun in a lot of ways, but my parents are coming from huge families. And so lots of cousins and lots of aunts and uncles. And so we would travel back and forth from Connecticut to Alabama for holidays, for,
So you were the only parts of your family that were up on the Northeast. Everybody was in the South.
In the South, except my dad's older brother, who was one of the first in the family to go to Connecticut, but the rest of them were back in Alabama. So,
wow.
So spent a lot of time with a lot of cousins. So grew up in Bloomfield, Connecticut, little suburb of Hartford, and it was a cool upbringing, and ended up going to Wesleyan University in Connecticut, small liberal arts college, which is where I met my wife, Camille. She's one class behind. I was class of 92. She's class of 93.
And how did you decide liberal arts?
At the time, I don't know if I knew as much about kind of liberal arts, but what I knew that I wanted was a smaller college,
Yes.
and not actually understanding all of the kind of terminology, but athletics was really important for me all through high school. But I knew I wasn't going to be a D1 kind of athlete, but I wanted to continue that athletic experience. And the schools that I was kind of finding connections with were these kind of small liberal arts colleges. And so while I didn't necessarily know that was what I was leaning towards, what I was certain was I wanted smaller classes. I cared deeply about reading and writing and learning. And I just knew that in a large environment, I would probably be one of those kids that would get lost or didn't show up to class.
Lost on your own.
Lost on my own.
Yes, right.
But going to a place where you walk into a classroom and your faculty member knows your name and is actually pushing you on certain things that you're either writing or saying, like that type of experience, I felt like I really. It resonated with me. And so that was something that I was leaning towards. And Wesleyan was a perfect place for that.
Wow, and then you met your wife there.
Even better.
That's great.
Right. So.
And just maybe then quickly, you have 3 kids.
3 kids, yeah.
And then what was your path after Wesleyan then? Where have you kind of been?
Graduate from Wesleyan. I've always had like an entrepreneurial spirit of sorts, that kind of landscaping business all through college. I had started in high school. Was a part of an intern program called Inroads. And through that internship program, I was basically taking talented students of color and placing them in for-profit corporations and training them for leadership. And so my first internship was with Otis Elevator Company. So I did that for a couple summers while working at Wesleyan. And so my first job after Wesleyan was working for Otis Elevator, which is at the time was part of United Technologies Corporation.
Okay.
So I did that in sales and service sales for a couple of years. And I was thinking I was going to go back and get an MBA. So I was thinking, well, it's a couple of years of for-profit. Maybe I'll get a couple of years of nonprofit, then get the MBA. The 2 years in nonprofit was started off at Wesleyan in the annual fund, raising money for the annual fund for the university. But that 2-year gig lasted 12 years.
All right, I have to just do a little commercial break here, because I think anyone who could do fundraising can do anything. Like literally, it has got to be the hardest job that there is to ask people for money.
And I love doing it. Is that scary? What is that? The place you're saying that. Yeah, that's great.
All right, so you did that for 12 years.
Did that for 12 years. And while at Wesleyan, I also ended up getting a master's in public administration and policy at Columbia while it was like an executive program. And then basically at that point, I was somewhere early in that time period, I was thinking, I really loved education. And as I was thinking about, well, what's the real career path?
Right.
I kept thinking that being a college president would be like, what an amazing opportunity.
Really?
It seems crazy.
Did you know any college presidents, or did you
not well, but just from afar, and actually as working in the advancement office, just seeing some of the college leaders, what I saw was a role where there's business, there's entrepreneurial thinking, there's like the academic side of things, there's like town-gown relations, and so there's political pieces to the role. There are lots of pieces of interest that I really leaned into, but didn't necessarily want to do like forever, right?
Right.
I enjoyed fundraising, but did I want to be a fundraiser? Like that's all I want, So I had an eye on a college presidency. That was something that was has been in the back of my mind for a long time. So I'm one of those crazy, weirdos. They're like, you really wanted to do this role? And when I was like, I kind of fell into the job. I'm like, no, but this is something that was, and not just at any place. I wanted it to be at a small liberal arts college where you can actually make a difference. You can connect with anyone and everyone. And I saw that at the folks that were leading the institution at Wesleyan, whether it was the time, Doug Bennett was one of the folks that I worked with. He's now deceased, but was Assistant Secretary of State.
Oh yeah.
Ran the public broadcasting company that he ran before becoming president at Wesleyan. But seeing how he navigated the space, Michael Roth, who's there now, there's just there have been some really great leaders at Wesleyan in that process, and that was really an attraction. So
wow. And so when did you get your first president role?
So Knox College.
Is that right?
2021.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been great.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. So for everybody who's listening, I'm a graduate of Knox College from 1981. Holy cow. That's hard to imagine. That was a little bit of a lifetime ago. But I'm really intrigued about the passion for education. I guess maybe working in the elevator business might have helped dissuade you from becoming an elevator executive, I guess. But tell me a bit about how you view kind of the power of education, and just as a very quick background, and I think you might know some of this, but listeners may not. I mean, I was the first in my family to ever go to college, and I went to Knox, not even knowing how you actually should look at other colleges. I'm from Peoria, Illinois, and my guidance counselor basically said, I was second in my class in high school, and said that Knox was like the perfect place for me because it was small. I was really good at languages, and I wanted to go to law school, and there was an amazing Russian program, and Russian in the 70s was, the world power outside of the US. And I was poor as a church mouse. And I was able to get amazing scholarships so that when I graduated, I was not going to be crippled with debt.
Right.
And so it was this kind of combination of being like the right thing for me, as someone who'd been a really good student, but also didn't have resources, but also, wanted to be someplace where I wouldn't be lost.
Right.
So when I think about Knox, I think about all of those things. And again, this is, really a long time ago.
Yeah, no. Thanks for sharing all that, Jane. That's great. I mean, I think, Knox is a place where what you just described is, in essence, what we've been about since 1837. If you look back at the founding of the college and you read the founding documents, it talks a lot about access for all.
Really?
Even during a time where, you were not seeing, come on, Earl. You were not seeing women being educated or being accepted to colleges and universities. Knox College was.
Really? In 1837? Really?
That was one of the founding pieces of the document. And so it has always been this place of looking and being attractive for students that are either first gen, maybe this is an economic situation that makes sense for them.
Right.
It's a place that will take you from wherever you are and help you to develop you to something that's even better, right? Mm-hmm. And whether that's a leader in any field of human endeavor, whether it's someone that's going across the globe or staying right there in Galesburg. So it's been a really special place. So I'm glad to hear your story. That has not. I think you will find as you talk to alumni and prospective students, those are still some of the lines that connect Knox College and its alumni and its great kind of sense of social mobility over time. So that's been really exciting to see, and being a part of that continues to be something that I'm really excited about. So.
Well, in season 2, we have been focusing a lot on resiliency. Yeah. And, for all of the success that many of us have had, we've also had a lot of failures and tough times. And I think what I've seen in my career, Andy, is it's super easy to be a leader when things are easy, and it's really hard when things are not. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about your experience, because you've been there almost 5 years. Right. You came in during COVID. Now we are in a time which is, there's, kind of a lot of macro trends that are going on. Right. I think in terms of being difficult to come to the U.S. as an international student. And I know Knox always has historically had a lot of international students. Right. I think a lot of maybe backlash on why do you even need a college education today, kind of thing. So, and I'm sure there's even more macro trends that I don't even know about. How are you navigating through all of that? And how has that impacted your leadership style?
No, thanks. And, this is a really tough time for the industry. And I think, when we started talking about the things that I was passionate about, and this interest in entrepreneurship for me has been something that it's been great to be able to bring that to a presidency, because what I've learned through my time working in higher ed over 30 years now is that you've got to be nimble, you got to be agile, you have to be willing to take calculated risks. And move aggressively, and then execute at a really high level. And one of the things that I believe Knox has been a great place to lead is that it's small enough, and there's a board that's supportive enough to say, well, what are we going to do differently right now to ensure that we're going to be successful through these very challenging moments? Right. And doing it with an eye towards our true mission and our values. So understanding the same things that you were talking about as a graduate, but how do we ensure that we're still being attractive for first generation students, or students from other countries, or students of color, or students that don't have the means to come to a college? How do you make sure that that's still viable? And you do that by being true to some basics. It's how are we offering our education for our students? What are the outcomes that we're trying to produce for our students and their families? And working really hard to ensure that that's going to be the right way for students to grow, develop, and lead. And okay, these are all coming back.
Oh, that's great. He'll be back to see it. I'll give you a little break.
But I think those are some of the things that we're trying to stay focused on, and realizing that in a crisis. You mentioned when I started in 2021, it was in the middle of COVID. While difficult as that was, one of the things that I was really kind of, I wouldn't say excited about, but you just realize that while an industry can shift on a dime when it has to, and when you're in a crisis, great ideas become what it's really how innovation happens. And so all of a sudden you saw an industry that would take years to move, went from educating students in the classroom to educating students online, literally in weeks.
Oh, that's right. I hadn't even thought about
total change of the use of technology. Mm-hmm. So what that shared for me was we can be successful right now in these challenging moments by being thoughtful, being innovative, but being willing to adapt, to move quickly, take risk. Obviously, it takes funds to do those things. You got to go out there and ask for funds, but when you're doing it for the purpose of ensuring that you can keep a great institution and make it better, people lean in on those things.
Oh, that's amazing. And then just as you think about the challenges that your students have today, what are some of the things that you're seeing from your viewpoint of, I was interested, I've been talking to some friends recently about a couple of things that are such huge trends. Yeah. And one is, I think, it's really came out of COVID, which is a lot of isolation of young people and now starting jobs where when I started, everybody showed up to work and you had peers, you were like in this environment of like being able to watch people. I'm sure when you had the internships at Otis, et cetera, like all of a sudden you have other people that you're learning from. And then you also now have social media, which is you're alone. And now you're looking at your phone and everybody seems like they're more successful than I am, or like, and they have more money, or they're cuter, or they're smarter, whatever. Like, what kind of things do you see on the campus that are impacting this Gen Z generation?
Yeah, you're hitting so many of the things already. And I will add the tail of COVID. And so you've got students that are coming into colleges right now that are socially not as mature as students were 5-10 years ago.
Right.
For the first time, when you look at the data on students that we were seeing in our country, that from the 70s, this increase in reading comprehension over time until COVID, and then that dropped off. So the students are coming as not as well prepared as they have been coming in the past. Right. That's across the board, every college and university. I think some of the things you've referenced, the social issues, are huge. The other things we haven't talked about are mental health concerns.
Yes.
These are really challenging times for students. I think in some ways, many of our students are much more willing to share their concerns than maybe previous generations were. But they're coming with some challenges, and how are we meeting them in those challenges? Technology's also been helpful. We've been actually using something called Timely Care on our campus for students, where students can access 24/7 counseling support through their phones.
Oh, great.
Which, I would have thought, wow, wouldn't you want to see a counselor? But actually, when you're accustomed to getting all of your information from your phone, being able to get help from your phone is actually really powerful too. So we still have access to counselors, but a lot of the information and support can be started right from your phone, which has been great to see. But these are a lot of the challenges, and I think another big one that we're seeing is just the lack of ability for students to kind of debate or disagree. It's this, we've seen like a cancel culture. It's either this or that.
Ooh.
We shut people off. And so one of the things that we, not to do a plug on Knox, but we through our Venture Boldly campaign, we started this institute called, it's the X-Family Institute for Civic Leadership and Dialogue. The former chair of Knox's board, and Nancy, has donated this funds to actually create an institute to help model how individuals can have difficult conversations. And so we just had a recent presentation with two very different speakers. We filled a church in Galesburg with 550 people, but just trying to highlight, if you believe in this and someone else believes in that, how do you all come together? And how can you have a conversation without shouting someone down, without shutting them off, but doing it in such a way that maybe there's opportunity for one another to learn?
Yes.
I think your podcast is one of these things where you're learning from others that are sitting in these chairs by engaging and asking great questions. But you don't want to lose that. And so that we're trying to ensure that we're modeling those types of behaviors and skills at a small liberal arts college. But that's a piece that we were seeing as a challenge, and we're trying to address it through different thinking and support in the way that we, highlight differing opinions.
I would never have really thought about that, and what an important skill to have. I was just talking recently to another person like myself from the Midwest, and we were talking about how when we grew up, we didn't have conflict in our home, and we didn't have dialogues. So it would be like you just didn't deal with it. And then when you start to meet somebody who might be grown up in a different culture that are in your face about something, you tend to not know how to interact. It feels like it's like on the offensive, as opposed to sort of saying, this is just like learning and having dialogue. So what was the reaction to this? The 550 people that were there?
They loved it. I mean, I think, I think for some people were showing up to see if there were going to be, the speakers were Cornel West and Robbie George. I think they were coming to see if there were going to be these fireworks. But, here are two people that fundamentally disagree with one another.
Right.
And yet they're good friends, and they've been on a speaking circuit for 20 years doing this. And they have fun doing it. And I think part of the lesson there is that you can have really opposing views and still be connected with someone. That's a lesson that I think we can all walk away with. Going, wow, that's something different. You mentioned that from being from the Midwest. Is that, I guess, the Midwestern nice? Whereas for someone from Connecticut, where it was always about I'm in your face.
Yes.
You want that? I don't like that. You're wrong. I'm right. And so, but you can learn from both. And I think there's this appetite and a need to develop skills where you can have a dialogue where you can honestly say, I fundamentally don't agree with that view, and then share why you don't.
Right.
And then be open to listening to hear your view. And we may part agreeing to disagree, or we may part to go, well, Jane, you just made an interesting point. I need to think about that. That's learning. That's growth. That's something that you can take as a skill in any environment, in anything that you do in life. So.
Well, and I think the whole idea that you're having a dialogue and you're listening and you're trying to learn, as opposed to just shutting someone down right away. And it does feel like that we, in today's environment, that there is a lot more, you're either on this side or on this side. Right. And it is,
right or left, black or white.
Yeah, it's very black or white in that way. Yeah. Anything else that you're just seeing from a trend standpoint with students today? Yeah,
I think, one thing that I have seen is I think students are wanting answers and results immediately, and not realizing that sometimes it takes some time to actually learn and grow. And, you start a new job and they want to go from the entry point to running the company.
Right. In 2 years.
Exaggerating a little bit, of course, but that there's something to be said about just having some patience. And I know you do a lot of work in kind of mentoring leaders, and that's how that mentorship takes place, over time. Seeing different experiences, understanding that failure is not the end of the world. Those are things I think will develop over time. I remember working at Clark University for about 8 years there in their advancement office, but one of the faculty members there was known for research on emerging adulthood and just seeing how students are taking a little longer to mature. Right. And that, maybe because of the differences in development and the needs of young people 20 years ago, it's different than it is today. Whereas, I may have graduated and needed to had different responsibilities, where students may not have those same responsibilities. So it takes just a little bit more time for them to grow, mature, and develop. But I think that understanding that it takes a little bit more time to get to where you want to go, and that it's okay to fail, and that you can learn from those things and and it's not the end of the world. So,
I could not agree with you more about failure, but it seems to me that there's so much fear from, I do a lot of work at the University of Colorado, as you know, and with people they're so scared that like that first job is going to be the most important job in their whole career, which literally has nothing to do with the rest of their career, whatever. So how do we learn about failure? I guess, like in your experience, that it's just part of the journey, and that's not to be afraid of it, but to, embrace it. It might be a little bit of a strong word, but how to learn from it and not feel like your whole world collapses because something doesn't work out.
Yeah, I think it's just it's just kind of taking those steps, and everyone will deal with it differently. I think sometimes just acknowledging that it's not great.
Right.
It sucks to fail, right? So it's like, how do you take that and then come out of that? And I think, we were talking a little bit about kind of athletics and arts and things of that nature, but I think that's one of the benefits of being involved in activities outside of the classroom too, because I think you start to see whether you're working on a dance, project, and knowing that you got to practice a lot to be able to perform. But even in that performance, you might not just hit that move the way you wanted to hit the move, and that's okay. But the process is the thing that you're trying to remember. Those are the things that you're trying to kind of focus on. And so I think some of it is our faculty are really important in those discussions. I'm sure they're seeing in the classroom where if someone doesn't get the grade that they think they should get, like sometimes that feels like the end of the world.
Right. And
how our faculty connect with our students in those moments, those are learning opportunities, and we have to lean in when we see them. You see it when students don't get the job that they wanted on our campus, and you're thinking, okay, there are going to be tons of jobs. Like, this is okay. Well, I didn't get it because of what? Well, that's all right. Whoever's running that department has the ability to decide who they want, and that's okay. And then you just go to the next one. But I think for people that are more accustomed to failure or kind of rejection, it's kind of understanding how to meet people where they are and then help move them to the next place. So,
well, I think that as I reflect on my time at Knox, I think that is one of the things about being at a liberal arts school is the ratio of faculty to students is such an amazing. What is it at Knox?
It's about 11-1 right now.
So you really feel like you're like you're being heard, and that you can actually have somebody help you get through your journey to some degree, and I think that's super powerful, especially with some of these other dynamics that we're talking about.
No question. I think, our faculty are the ones that actually help to push students to pursue other opportunities or ask critical questions or to improve what they're doing in a way that they may not have seen early on. I can't tell you the number of students that I see from the very first day they step on the campus, and then to see that student when they're walking across that stage getting the diploma. I've seen the growth over time. Like, I've seen them at a performance, or I've seen them at their poster presentation, and someone that was like not even speaking to the point where they're actually doing a full-on presentation in front of a group of people. It's really incredible. But that they were mentored, they were guided by our faculty. And here's the other thing for a small liberal arts college, and I'm sure you felt this when you were on campus. But, our facilities folks, our dining services people, our professionals and staff folks in the various departments, those are all important ingredients for a small liberal arts college. I can't tell you, sometimes our dining staff will know more about what's going on with a particular student because they are seeing them every day. They care deeply. They're making the calls. They're supporting them. It's a community that cares. And that's something that's really, really special to see.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I believe so strongly that we're getting ready to have a renaissance in the world of more community, that there's too many things that are going on that isolate us, that have us we're never going to change what's happening with technology, and AI is only going to be more part of our world. But I think that this next generation is going to, they have to embrace it, but there's also going to be somewhat of a backlash that I want to physically be with people.
Yes.
I want to hug somebody. I mean, I really think that this idea of community is going to become so much more important because technology is isolating us. And I think as a people, there is this, it's just a natural instinct that you want to be with somebody.
I think you're spot on. And I think the ability to build those relationships, and these are relationships that will be around forever, for your lifetime. And that's really powerful. I mean, I can't tell you the number of alumni that I speak with, and they'll say, Professor so-and-so changed my life.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm still in touch with them. And our faculty love that, but I think those relationships, while on campus, are critical. And I think to your point about just this importance of community overall, I think is really, really something that we should be all leaning into, because it's the one piece that I think really helps to change lives.
I could not agree more. Well, I could probably talk to you forever. But I'm going to just ask you one final question for today, which is, what are you most hopeful about?
Oh, wow. Well, I have to say, I think as a college president, you have to be optimistic all the time. Like that's just a part of what I do.
Right.
Because I see our students, and that to me is the hope for our future.
Yeah.
Right. Because what you recognize and you realize is that they're great minds. They care deeply. They're passionate about lots of different things. And if you take that passion and fill it with information, and you challenge it and you mold it and you shake it up a little bit, it can produce like amazing things. And so we're seeing, and I'm seeing it as it's evolving. And so for me, I'm like, oh, our country, our world, we have nothing to worry about. There's some challenges, there are crisis moments. But if you just look and you see the passion of our leaders that are on our campus today, I have no doubt that great things will happen for our future. So,
wow. Well, I just want to thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm so glad that you're at the helm of Knox. It's really, it's a very special place. And just to hear you talk about it, it makes me want to get back on campus as soon as possible.
It's an honor being here. Thanks for having me on your show. This is great.
All right. Thank you.
I had so many takeaways from my conversation with Andy, but I want to start with one of the last things that he said. He talked about how the people and facilities and dining services and other support functions on campus, those outside of the faculty and instructors, are also integral to the Knox experience. That in their day-to-day interactions, by paying attention, they may see something with the student that no one else has noticed. Something that could make a difference in their lives. By all these campus members paying attention, Knox creates a community that cares. And he also talked about creating an environment where students learn to have difficult conversations and to encourage debates to share opposing views, not just canceling out anyone who doesn't have their same opinion. A little trivia here, one of Knox's claims to fame is being one of the locations for the Lincoln-Douglas debates in 1858. Although Lincoln lost the Senate seat in Illinois, this laid the foundation for his greater contributions as our 16th President of the United States. And now you know that Knox has a rich debating history. As many of my guests have mentioned in Season 2, as we have focused on resilience, don't be afraid of failure and use it as a learning experience. Take the time to learn and not demand results immediately were a few things that Andy talked about. If you've listened to any of my podcasts, you know the importance I place on human interaction and the little things that make our collective experience so rich. With Andy's conversation fresh in our thoughts, here are the questions that I have for us. First, Are we open to truly hearing and acknowledging someone's point of view, especially if it differs from our own? Second, do we take the time to notice the little details around us, the subtle signals that someone may be giving us that they could use a friend or maybe even some help? And finally, if we have had a perceived failure recently, what have we learned from it? With that, let me turn it over to Earl, Chief Hugs Officer at Jane's Place, and he can share what he is doing to make our world a better place. Take it away, Earl.
Hey, Earl here, Chief Hugs Officer at Jane's Place. After joining almost every episode, I discovered my passion, and that passion is giving hugs. Hugs, hugs. I also learned something pretty important along the way too. When things feel hard or uncertain, and sometimes even when life is exciting, words aren't always enough. But showing up for someone is. And by adding a hug, you say, I care. So I've started a hugs movement to kick off 2026. I just know the world can be a better place if we are generous with our hugs. But since I can't be everywhere, I've created Earl's Happy Hug Box. It's a special gift box curated by me, and inside there's a comfy, life-size plush that looks just like me. I call him Earl Jr. Plus a few other fun things are included too. Now, if someone came to mind while you were listening or watching today, this might be for them. Or might even be what you could use right now. You can learn more at janesplace.com/Earl. But for now, I'll leave you with one of my Earls of Wisdom. Show up, hug often.
Special thanks to my amazing producer, Aditi Joshi, for her partnership in creating Jane's Place and all her hard work behind the scenes to make Jane's Place so special. I am also grateful that my Chief Hugs Officer, Sir Earl Grey, has a real voice thanks to my good friend, Jake Dawson. And Jane's Place feels like home with the music from an amazing musician, Tim Cook. Tim gave us permission to use the Subdued song, Them Figs, as our upbeat theme music. Tune into the next episode of Jane's Place, where dreams learn to fly.